So good morning, everybody. Um, Happy to be here amongst all of you, and we look forward to meeting you and talking in more detail at our booth later. So today I'm going to talk about the most topical thing, I guess, in today's day and age, which is Gen AI. Uh, I'll talk a little bit about some of the industry trends that we are seeing globally. Then I'll give you a point of view of how our approach, or Adobe's approach, what is our approach towards Gen AI, and why are we better than any of the platforms that are out there. Before I start off, though, I do want to read this quote from our Chief Strategy Officer, Mr. Scott Belsky. A surge of wildly human-intensive and non-scalable experiences are ahead of us as they become economically viable in the age of AI. The future of every digital experience will be personalized. Scott has been, our strategy officer for quite some time, and this was some of his thoughts on how Gen AI is going to make an impact in especially a lot of digital experiences, customer-facing, or even if it's B2B or B2C experiences, how can they be personalized using Gen AI? So we'll talk a little bit about this as well. But before I get there, this is not just IBM had done a study last year amongst the top CEOs of, global CEOs of industrial manufacturing. And what they found was that over 63% of CEOs believed that AI, and specifically generative AI, is on their minds, especially for the next 3 years, followed by, obviously, cloud computing, and then RPAs and IoT and so on. But it was very surprising to see that generative AI was top on the list when it came to a CEO's priority. Moving on, so there are different use cases for Gen AI as well as traditional AI, as we call it. And whereas with traditional AI is very good at taking data, analyzing it, iterating it, and then in order to create predictive actions on it. Generative AI, on the other hand, is really good at generating new content, whether it's images, video, code, or text. And so there are different use cases for which we still find traditional AI to be really, really useful. For example, we have a product which allows you to extract data from PDF files. And we use traditional AI methods in order to do that. While as we have other tools, for example, some of you must have seen Adobe Reader on your phone has a new assistant there. So that's using Gen AI. So based on the use case, based on what problem we are trying to solve, we would recommend either using traditional AI methods or generative AI methods. If you look at some of the emerging use cases in Gen AI, this is what we captured. So mostly it revolves around content generation. It's really good at generating new content, as I mentioned earlier. Some of the other use cases involve summarization, like, for example, with documents, invoices, and things like that. It could also do summarization of conversations from your call center logs and so on, and many other use cases as well in terms of summarization for financial services and so on. Code generation is also something a lot of developers now have been using Gen AI for. And of course, search is also another important aspect of searching through structured or unstructured data to find the right piece of information. So we'll dive into some of these today during the presentation. So what challenges can AI and generative AI solve in industrial manufacturing? So you cannot ignore that most of the use cases here revolve around marketing and sales. I think the factory floor has gone through enough evolution, especially applying a lot of Edward Deming's principles. So I think a lot of that is now moving towards customer-facing processes, such as in marketing and sales. And that's where we see the most use cases for generative AI. Especially if you're a B2B company that's focusing on digital channels, even more opportunity to delight your customers. Some of the other business functions utilizing generative AI or AI in general are across marketing, sales, and this is what we typically, when we talk to our customers in manufacturing, we're talking about the lead to cash process at the end, which is like, how do you look at your existing base of customers and send quotes, fulfillment, and all of those things fall under this category right here. So we've been doing this for quite some time, but now with Gen AI, I think what you'll be able to do is, for example, if you're, actually I have a slide. Yeah, so for example, if you're spending a lot on sell and serve, especially with the costs rising up of maintaining sales teams and supply chain challenges that come with it, so you can look at Gen AI to reduce a lot of that. Or market profitability pressures. Like, for example, a lot of customers have a long tail of customers who aren't contributing that much to the revenue, but they are important nevertheless. So what if you could activate that group using Gen AI? Or what if you could simplify your SKUs using Gen AI? If you have, I know a lot of manufacturers have loads and loads of SKUs. What if you could simplify it for your customer? And when we say your customer, I'm talking about like in a B2B scenario, not B2C scenario where, where you can do personalization to an extent where if you buy this sneaker, then you probably are going to like this. So that's on a B2C case. But on a B2B case, you could utilize it for simplifying your entire supply chain process. So one example was reducing the number of SKUs or showing only the SKUs that are relevant to your vendors and so on. So as I mentioned, again, to reinforce my point here, you can see that most of the enablement for AI has been around chatbots, lead generation for sales, and of course, on the content creation side, it's been mostly around driving campaigns. There's still a lot of opportunity here, and there's still a lot of room for a lot of companies to now onboard a lot of these solutions in order to automate a lot of the content creation, campaign design, personalized marketing, and so on. So our approach to Gen AI has been like, sure, today there are plenty of platforms out there. You can type a nice prompt, get a pretty looking picture. Is that picture going to be on brand? Is that going to be on message? So that's where we want to come in and say that, hey, you can train our model on your content and then generate content that is on brand and on message. We look at it as a co-pilot for all your digital experience and design and delivery processes. And finally, it's designed to be commercially safe. Now, literally every week, there's a headline about, there was, for example, a Scarlett Johansson one that happened a couple of weeks ago. There's a lot of problems out there with Gen AI. There's a lot of copyright infringement issues, likeness infringement issues, and so on. The way we are managing to be commercially safe is, we said, hey, we have our own stock repository of 300 million stock images, videos, vectors. What we've used, our model is trained on our images that we have rights to, that we have copyrights to. We also compensate the contributors who contributed those images, making it fair for everyone. And that's how we manage to be enterprise-friendly and commercially safe. And that's why you have agencies and some of the largest brands using our Gen AI technology in order to, again, create a lot more images for now. But in the future, you'll also hear about video creation using Gen AI as well. We're very excited about that. So here are some example use cases of how some of the customers around the world have been using Gen AI in different capacities. So, for example, and also, like I mentioned, just to reinforce the fact, again, this is based on the same IBM research that I was citing earlier. Improvement of quality of content seems to be the #1 need of the hour right now, right? And also, if you look at the top use cases, dynamic content development, internal content management, customer insights, market research, we'll be touching upon those three ones that you see there. So let me just go through it quickly. So if you want to create a lot of educational content or thought leadership, if you're trying to publish something on thought leadership and you want to have images that can complement that, so you can look at Adobe Firefly, which is our text-to-image generation model, allows you to generate a lot of images. If you are a manufacturer selling into different geographies across the world, and you want to now personalize the content that you're sharing in EMEA, in the US, you don't want the EMEA team to be looking at, if you have multiple uniforms across different plants, you don't want the EMEA plant to be looking at the US uniforms or the Indian uniforms and so on and so forth. So you can completely customize your images based on which geography you're producing content for, right? The other one is for acceleration of ideation and production of manufacturing experiences. Like here, for example, there was some heavy machinery, and we want to show it in a different scenario. And maybe I'm selling it in Qatar, and I want to have a desert in the background there. So you don't need to then fly your machine out to Qatar and then get a photo shoot done. You can use Gen AI for many of those use cases, right? So that's one of the things. Copy generation is also something that, text-to-text generation has been quite popular now with ChatGPT. But again, can you train a particular model on your language so that when it generates content, it is, again, as per your brand and your nomenclature? And that is what we are offering now. So you can your marketing teams, for example, can generate copy in various languages also using Gen AI. Again, for ideate and production of industrial manufacturing, you can see examples of how you can modify the background, expand upon your existing photos that you have, so you save a lot of cost from not having to spend too much money on many of these marketing-related photo shoots, post-processing, and so on and so forth. And also the dependency on agencies also reduce a little bit, so you save cost on that as well. Finally, democratize the production activity assets across your organization. Typically, most people think Adobe Photoshop is meant only for a creative user. You have to go through art school, do a course, and then you'll be able to use Photoshop. But what we're doing now is we have a version of Photoshop that's available online called Express, Adobe Express. And it allows you to create content, anyone to create content. So even if you're in marketing and non-creative roles, can come in here and generate content, whether they're in sales, they're in marketing, they're in communications. All of those teams they don't need to learn Photoshop, or they can just use the browser, Adobe Express, and then generate content, as you see right here in the small graphic there. So, and you can also compose briefs, as I mentioned earlier, for text-to-text generation. So campaign briefs and so on can be generated using our Sensei Gen AI. Finally, a customer story here. Stanley Black & Decker did that. They had 10 different teams working completely siloed. And there was a lot of issues with not following the brand guidelines when creating content. So what they did was they standardized on our workflow management tool called Adobe Workfront, which allows everybody now to share content, to be on brand, to make sure the approvals are in place, and make sure there's smooth flowing of content generation. So that is how we have simplified work for Stanley Black & Decker. So this is what we had to share in terms of what we're doing with Gen AI. I've only given you the tip of the iceberg here. There's lots more to talk about. Please come visit us at our booth. Love to spend time and talk more about how we can help you transform your business. So on that note, thank you everybody for your time. I hope you have a lovely rest of your conference, and I hope to catch up with all of you later. Thank you.